Hey folks, welcome in to another edition of the Georgia Show, special edition here. Palmer Tom's your host today, joined by Adam Luckett from KSR, talking Georgia, Kentucky. This Saturday's matchup taking place at Kroger Field in Lexington. Adam, really appreciate you joining us today. How are you doing?
Good, Palmer. Thanks for having me on, man. Exciting times down there, huh?
Yeah, it certainly has been an eventful season here in Athens, off to a 10-0 start. Obviously, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and things not so sweet up in Kentucky, in the Bluegrass State, coming off of a loss to Vanderbilt this weekend. Basketball season kicking into gear. Is that kind of where would you say that the fan base is at right now, Kentucky fans and their excitement level? Because this was such a highly anticipated game going into the year. At least from what you said, it doesn't seem to that's as much the case now.
Angry, upset, disappointed. I think all of those words classify here. You heard Boo Birds on Saturday against Vanderbilt. I think you're going to hear Boo Birds this Saturday against Georgia. People are really upset with the offense and what has transpired here with the offense. It's trending to be potentially the worst offense of the Mark Stoops era, and they've seen some bad offenses. These last three games, it's been as bad as any team in the Power Five. They can't score, they can't finish drives. They're only saving grace is they haven't had turnovers, but other than that, it's just been very, very bad offensively. They haven't been able to score points, and that's just kind of the crux of the season. First-year offensive coordinator Rich Gangarello is not a popular man around town right now. So really, here in the Bluegrass State, like number one undefeated Georgia's coming into town. CBS is here. And no one, it just is what it is. No one really cares about that. It is all about, I think, in my personal opinion, people are seeing to what Stoops does, really there's two things. One, they just want to beat Louisville. Rivalry game, just find a way to win that one. And then two, it's figure out what they're going to do for the future of this offense. Because offensively this year it's been unacceptable on many, many fronts, and they've kind of wasted some talent here, and that really has people upset.
Yeah, you talk about the talent that they've gotten, and it is apparent. You look up and down this roster, you've got Will Levis, who a lot of folks are looking at as one of the top quarterbacks in the coming NFL draft, a guy in Chris Rodriguez who has become one of the better running backs in the SEC. You bring in Tavion Robinson, a very versatile player from the transfer portal, and you've also got former five-star Barrion Brown in there as well, a youngster freshman out of Nashville. Talk about those guys and what it is. What is it about this offense? Like you said, you've got so many talented players, so many big names that you recognize just looking at the list, and you could go even further with that. Cavassier Smoke is somebody that Georgia fans remember. He's been a big part of this running game for a couple seasons now. What is it about this offense where you do have those talented players, but you're not putting up the results that you may have expected?
You can't tell the story about 2022 Kentucky football team without talking about the offensive line a lot. The offensive line has been awful all year. It hasn't gotten any better. It's arguably gotten worse. It's hard to imagine there being a worse offensive line in the Power 5 than what we've seen here in Lexington through 10 games from this group. They've had to shuffle people around. They've got multiple players playing out of position. They don't have much depth. They've had some, I think, 2019 and 2020 recruiting classes were big swings and whiffs for them at that position. Now, you have to date back. John Schlarman, who was a longtime offensive line coach here, got cancer during the 2018 season and then passed away during the 2020 season. And so, but he still coached, but I think they're reeling from the end of that recruiting-wise. And that's really, I think, caught up to them and bit them in the butt this year. And then you lose Eric Wolford to Alabama after last year. You're on your third offensive line coach. Things have just not gone well. They haven't. It seems like they've gotten worse and haven't improved. So you're seeing offensive line coach Zach Ginter start to come under fire here. That why isn't this looking any better than what it's been? How is it this bad? So you have to start there. They haven't been able to block people, and so that led to your quarterback getting hurt in the Ole Miss game. Will Levis gets turf toe in the Ole Miss game. That causes him to miss the South Carolina game, leads to a loss at home, an embarrassing loss to home. Getting back against Mississippi State, but then he gets hit and injures his non-throwing shoulder. And so he's dealing with that as well throughout the season. And so the offensive line has just not helped things at all. They haven't been able to run the ball really effectively unless Chris Rodriguez is back there. And most of that is him just breaking tackles and falling forward and making things happen because he's a really damn good running back. So that's been the issue. And in this kind of pro-style offense, there just hasn't been any easy outs for that offensive line. They haven't been able to kind of protect themselves from having a bad offensive line, and that is the main part of the issue. And then early in the season, they didn't want Levis to be a runner. It was pretty obvious they wanted to protect him, but that has kind of backfired because he's just been under fire in the pocket, getting hit a ton, so he's injured, and now he can't move around really at all, and that takes away one of his big weapons, is just kind of be able to move and throw on the run and stuff like that. So you got a statue at quarterback now, you got a bad offensive line, and there's talent at receiver, but there's a lot of freshmen playing. Jordan Dingle's their best tight end, he's a redshirt freshman. Dane Key's probably their best receiver, he's a true freshman. Barian Brown, like you mentioned, true freshman. I think you're seeing those guys hit a wall a little bit, like you expect freshmen to do. So it's just been a culmination of things. And offensively, after the bye, the 3 games against Tennessee, Missouri, and Vanderbilt have just been horrific. Not finishing drives, not taking advantage of field position opportunities, not being able to pass the ball really effectively other than in the Missouri game. But even in the Missouri game, they couldn't protect Levis at all. I've said all year, this offense has no layups. Everything looks like it's very, very difficult, and that's all adding up to give us what has been just a very putrid offensive performance from this team this year.
Switching over to the defensive side of the football, again, there are some names that you recognize there, some veteran guys, DeAndre Square, J.J. Weaver, Jordan Wright, up and down the list there, Jaquez Jones as well, especially in the front seven. What has been the identity of this defense? And along the lines of Square, what's his availability like for this weekend? Because I know he's been banged up.
Yeah, I would say probable. He's probably going to play. They thought he could go last week. It got to the end of the week, he couldn't. They're thinking he's going to be able to go last week. Really, the story of the defense is kind of opposite of the offense. This group has survived injuries. Square missed 2 games. Jaquez Jones has been out since the Ole Miss game, which was week 5, I believe. So they haven't had him. Jalen Geiger, who was one of their starting safeties, got injured in week 2 against Florida, has been out for the year. Their starting nickel, Vito Tisdale, was knocked out in the spring with a knee injury. He's been out for the year. Even with all that injuries, they've essentially been a top 15, top 20 defense all year. It's a group that there's not star power on this defense, but they play team defense very well. They're connected. They play together. They stop the run. Typically, don't give up big pass plays. Make offenses earn scores. Drive down the field. It's a typical kind of Mark Stoops defense. But this Brad White's done a really, I think, impressive coaching job. His defense, they won the game at Florida, which was a big win for Kentucky early in the year. They smothered Mississippi State at home, which was a big spot for the team. So when Kentucky's had their best games, it's been centrally because the defense playing really well. The unfortunate part is when they've really needed the defense, really against South Carolina. Well, I say that. They gave up 17 offensive points to South Carolina. They gave up 21 offensive points to Vanderbilt. Those should be enough to win the games. But they weren't good against Vanderbilt. That was the worst game of the season they played. It seemed like they were unprepared for Mike Wright at quarterback, who was kind of a dual threat. And they've been good against running quarterbacks this year, which was kind of shocking what Vanderbilt did to them. But overall, the defense has been good. It's been better than expected, in my opinion. And that's, I think, leads to a lot of the frustration here, is because you've got this good defense, and your offense has been so bad it's not been unable to take advantage of an advantageous schedule and team up with a good defense to maybe do some things and have another run at 10 wins. Instead, the offense has gone down the drain, and you're staring down the barrel at a 6-6 finish right now.
So Kirby Smart this week has emphasized the physicality that Kentucky plays with, has said over the last couple of years that, described this game as a bloodbath, said that if you talk to anybody that has played, anybody on these teams that have played in those games, they consistently say that Kentucky is the most physically testing team that they play, just in terms of they want to match you, at the line of scrimmage. They'll hit you hard and whatnot. As you look at this game, what do you think? Do you think it's the physicality trying to match Georgia, go toe to toe with Georgia there, or what do you think could be the ultimate deciding factor between if this game is going to be a blowout like Vegas expects it to be, with Georgia as a 3 touchdown plus favorite, or making this game closer and putting up a fight?
I think as we've seen over the last few years, typically Kentucky's able to hang in with Georgia early because of their defense, because stylistically how they play. I think there's a chance that happens here. The kicker here is just the offense for Kentucky. I mean, what can they do? How ugly does it get? Because against Tennessee, it got so, when people looked up the Tennessee game, they saw the highlights, like Jalen Hyatt getting behind Kentucky's defense on the first possession and then getting behind them again. But defensively, Kentucky did not play all that bad in that game. Tennessee, on over half their possessions, started on Kentucky's side of the 50 because their offense and the special teams, which has been another disaster for Kentucky football, did not play complementary football. And so it put them in a lot of bad situations. I could definitely see that happen against Georgia. Get backed up, 3 and out, short punt, and then possessions start piling up on you, and before you know, you can look up and you're down 3 possessions real quick. So for Kentucky, it's all about, can the offense move the chains at all? Can it give the defense some rest? Can it find a way to create some explosive plays? And then can the defense keep them in there and keep it close in the second half? And then if that could happen, then maybe you'd have to probably depend on turnovers or something like that. But Kentucky's mini Georgia, really. I think both these head coaches believe football should be played a certain way. Their teams play that way. Georgia's just got better players. So this is always a nightmare matchup for Kentucky because they're staring in the mirror of someone who's, bigger, faster, stronger than them, but that's doing stuff the same way. It's led to a lot of, I think, wins for Kentucky. But it's just different when you're trying to beat someone who does it better than you. And I think that's a lot of the reason why you see these games get a little out of Kentucky's hands late in these games, is just because they're just banging their head against something that's better than them, and they're both doing it kind of the same. So I expect something very similar to happen again on Saturday.
Well, Adam, always an interesting matchup between these two teams. Like you said, it's two teams that like to play very similar styles, and it creates a clash of talented players. So looking forward to seeing that as Georgia goes on the road to Kentucky to take on the Wildcats. 6-4 on the season. Georgia at 10-0 with an SEC championship berth already clinched. Setting their sights on some bigger goals as well there. Adam, really appreciate your time today, and look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Thank you, Palmer.